Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about 5 tips for users that like to switch from Windows or Mac OS to Linux. Basically, a lot of times people think that Linux is a very difficult operating system, and that is kind of far from the truth. There is a lot of information out there on Linux administration, how to install it, forums, blogs, etc. There's a lot of information out there. So basically, you don't have to like think that that's going to be difficult. And sometimes people also think, well, it's going to cost me. I'm going to have another computer. I'm going to have some other type of any cost to it. You could actually do this on the cheap, as it says on my title, or basically on the free. All right. So, like I say again, that's one thing that at least if you have the intention to do this, you could basically use this video as a reference guide of sorts. And then if you want to enable these tips, then you could do that as well. Okay. So let's ask ourselves these questions as to why do we want to learn Linux. Okay, so we want to gain a new skill, or we also want to learn maybe systems security, or we also want to avoid the high cost of software, or any other reasons, right? Well, the good news for you is that all these reasons could actually be accomplished by learning Linux. So, I mean, I just use these three right here, but it could be so many, and these are all targets and objectives that you could actually achieve if you just give Linux a try. All right, so just ask yourself those questions. Come up with your own answers, and then if you want, you could go and verify it on the internet. You could actually give it a test drive, which is the best thing that you can do, and then you will be able to see that all these goals that you have in mind could be very easily achieved. Tip number one is basically to get an older computer or a laptop and install Linux on it. The main thing that you will have to be concerned with this particular tip is the architecture of that particular older computer. The architecture is basically how the computer is made and how the computer could actually um, process information. And the newest architecture is 64-bit. 10 maybe or so years ago, the architecture was 32-bit. Those architecture has to match the architecture of the files that you're using for installation of any operating system. Okay. Um, so basically, that's the main thing that you're gonna have to do. And then if you do that, that right there is represents as some savings. Because you don't have to spend anything. You already have that resource, and you just basically recycling, repurposing it. You just install it, basically, and then you have Linux on a separate computer other than the computer that you're using, if you have this resource. I'll see you in the next screen for tip two. Okay, so here we are on tip number two, and then basically is to go to the VMware.com website and then download VMware Workstation 16 player. As you can see right here, this is a free version available for non-commercial purposes. So you could use it to like test drive different operating systems or different pieces of software. If you was to install Linux on it, and then you do things to it to try to update repositories, or you shut it down inappropriately or something, whatever happens to it, it will only affect that VMware machine. Okay. I do have other videos that explain how to install Linux into a VMware virtual box, and those will be in the description as well. Also, as you can see over here, you go to downloads, and then it allows you to download the workstation player, which is the one that I actually use. Out here you will have support, you will have there is blogs, there is videos on YouTube, etc. And when that VMware machine is actually installed, this is how it looks. This is Linux inside the virtual machine inside of VMware. Okay, as you can see, I got different things that I could use. Like that SeaMonkey browser. Let's say, for example, that opens up pretty nicely, and that's all part of how can I say to you the different applications that are that that you could operate within Linux. And again, as you can see, also most of it what you see here is going to be point and click. Okay, so if you go to games, let's say you want to go to Sudoku, I guess, and you go easy, whatever. See, it works very nicely. So that's the thing. Don't think that it's a bunch of how can I say to you command line or it's so difficult. It works and operates just like any other system. So I will see you on the next screen to discuss tip number 3. All right, guys, here we are on tip number 3. And basically, tip number 3 is just to obtain like a USB thumb drive. You could get a used one, you could get a cheap one, etc. And then you could actually install Linux on that external thumb drive. It really involves just to actually connect that thumb drive to your computer and then also boot your computer to that thumb drive and then install Linux onto the thumb drive. And then once Linux is installed on that thumb drive, then you could boot up your computer to the thumb drive, and then you will have the Linux operating system available to you for you to test drive it. That could be another option. This option is not free, but it's cheap because as you can see right here, there is thumb drives out here for $6, $8. They sell them in all of the places. The cheapest places I've seen them for like $5. Sometimes I've seen it for 10. But the price varies. But at the end of the day, it's a very cheap alternative. One of the things that you could basically validate is that the thumb drive has a 2.0 or 3.0. 3.0 is the fastest and most recent configuration of thumb drives or flash drives as they call them as well. Okay, so here you could go to places like Walmart, Craigslist. You could go to Nextdoor app, whichever. Just get one that's used. Just make sure that it works properly. Copy some files to it, move some files out of it. Kind of like just make sure that it works properly, and then just use it for your testing environment for Linux. I will see you on the next tip. All right, so here we are on tip number 4. As you can see right here on the screen, I have the Ubuntu 64 virtual machine. Okay, so basically, like I explained earlier, is a VMware virtual machine that has LXLE Linux installed in it. This tip basically involves like learning how to load software into your Linux machine. And for some reason, it seems kind of odd in reference to the other tips that I'm giving you. But the reason why this tip has been included is because once you load the operating system, you've gone past that hurdle. The next thing that you're going to want to do is basically like install other pieces of software just to see and test drive Linux, right? So as you can see, like if you come over here, you're going to have what is called application launcher. That's one of the things that you'll have. And then you're also going to have like your browser. So in your browser, let's say for example that I wanted to download Kazam, which is like a screen capture software. It's open source, etc. You could always do a search for Kazam download and then get the download from SourceForge. Okay, that's one way of doing it. But then also, if you come over here and then you come to excuse me, to the control menu and then you go to software, then you will also have Synaptic Package Manager. Now, Synaptic Package Manager, to me, it seems to give you the versions of software that kind of were incorporated for your kernel, for your version of Linux. Okay, And then so you come over here and let's say that you want to download Kazam, you just click on Kazam over here, you do a search for it, and then it will come up and it will tell you right here. Okay. And then if you mark it, then it means you right click on it, it says mark for installation. So that's one way of doing that. Um, and then it will just basically allow you to install that piece of software. Okay. This is really important because you could have an operating system which it does comes loaded with some software already, as you can see here. Okay, like for example you have like VMWare, which is some type of a word processor, etc. But if you wanted to add a different version of this, or let's say Excel spreadsheets or LibreOffice or anything else, you're gonna have to learn how to install software. Okay, and then like I say again, you could do it through Synaptics Package Manager, or you could do it through the actual site on the internet where you could obtain that software. And then there's also more advanced ways to do it through the command line or through the shells, as they call them in Linux. Okay, and again, it's a ton of documentation out there as to how to do this. But I believe that this is one of the tasks that you might want to become familiarized with. All right, so I will see you on the next screen for the next tip. Okay, so over here we are at the very last tip that we have. And then basically this very last tip is to learn Linux administration. Um, you could do that little by little. You could basically purchase a book, or if you don't have the resources to purchase a book, you could always go to different places online. In this case, let's say that we're trying to install LXLE. So I'm over here on the lxle.net website. This is where you will download LXLE. But also, if you go to support, you have over here something that is called wikis, right? On these wikis, basically what happens is that it takes you to this document that has all of the information in how to use that operating system. So over here, if you go to installation, you'll see that it takes you to the installation guide. And then over here, you will have all of the screenshots as to how to install Linux in your machine. Okay, it's kind of basic, but it's very powerful. Okay. Also, you could go to other places like you could type Linux administration, like in Google. I'm sorry, YouTube, and you will see different videos of different lengths. This one is 6 hours. This one is 28 minutes, etc. 7 hours, and it's a ton of information on Linux administration. Okay. So in closing, I would like to tell you that whatever preconception you had of Linux, just kind of like, do your research, do your homework, do your due diligence, and play a little bit with it. You'll find out that it's no different than what you're doing right now. And then when everything is said and done, you will have another skill set. You'll have knowledge of Linux, and you could do anything with it. Then also, thank you for watching the video to the end. Make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe for me, please, because I have other videos that I have in mind to work with Linux. Again, thank you for watching.